Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Erik Voss, and Black Widow left us with the mystery of the Red Guardian Alexei Shostakov, who loves telling his war stories about Captain America back in the 80s.
I have the nuclear code, but there he is, Captain America. What year was this? I don't know. Like 83, 84.
And if you were to remind him Cap was a popsicle from 1945 to 2011, he'll make your wrist perfect for stealing Snickers out of vending machines. Such was the fate of his fellow inmate, Ursa, aka Big Bear, who, by the way, was just confirmed by the actor to be the Russian mutant Ursa Major, who can transform into a huge brown bear. He joined Crimson Dynamo on the Winter Guard. That's fun, but anyway, it seemed Alexei was just lying. But then, after escaping, he continues to badger Natasha, asking if Steve ever talked about him.
Did he talk to you about me?
Who? What are you talking about?
Captain America. My great adversary in this theater of geopolitical conflict. Not so much a nemesis, more like a contemporary, you know?
But between Steve's frozen status and Alexei being imprisoned for several years up until that point, there really was no overlap in which either of them could have met. So why does he keep bringing it up? Is Alexei delusional? Most likely. David Harbour said in an interview, jokingly at first, that Alexei's Cap stories are, quote, absolutely true, 100%, but that Alexei wasn't interested in reality. He doesn't even know that he's lying. However, I can report after thoroughly researching the history of both the MCU and the comics that there are actually 4 ways the Red Guardian could be telling the truth about having fought Captain America in the year 1984. Real quick, thanks to Kiwico for sponsoring today's video. More about them later. By the way, we still have some great Black Widow inspired merch options at newrockstarsmerch.com, including our awesome latest obsession, the Red Deep shirt, a Russian nesting doll shirt, and this awesome Red Ledger notebook. Get them while supplies last. Ain't gonna last long. Thank you for your cooperation. Why did I do that? So let us first get out of the way the theory that Alexei could have faced Isiah Bradley. Nope, I'm sorry folks. It'd be awesome to see those two fight. I'd put my money on Isiah. But the problem was Isiah was 100% not active during the 1980s. He fought during the Korean War, which lasted from 1950 to 1953. As that war was coming to an end, he was imprisoned by the American government for 30 years, according to him. Now, that would have put him out in enough time to face Alexei in the year 1984, but Isiah said that he was only released because a nurse declared him dead, and that ever since he's been laying low in Baltimore, hoping that the government would never find out that he was still alive. And as one of the many black super soldier test subjects, he was cruelly denied the title of Captain America, so he's definitely not the Cap that Alexei was referring to. But the Cap succession that we saw in the Falcon the Winter Soldier, from John Walker to Sam Wilson, actually began in the comics with a handful of other Captain Americas throughout the decades. So our mystery MCU 80s Cap could be a past Cap successor. See, in the comics, after Cap disappears into the ice, the American public actually believed that Cap endured when men by the name of William Nesland and then Jeffrey Mace took over the Cap mantle. But when Mace retired, another guy named William Burnside, who grew up obsessed with Steve Rogers, returned from Germany with a formula for the super soldier serum, which he used as leverage to become the new Cap. He actually changed his name to Steve Rogers and altered his voice and got plastic surgery to look more like Steve Rogers. Yikes. Yeah, surprise, surprise, not the best guy. Actually, his serum was faulty, and later on in his life, he tried to overthrow the government. So Burnside could be our 80s Cap, but there's actually a likelier Cap successor that's already in the MCU, Roscoe Simons. In the comics, Simons takes over the Cap mantle from Steve Rogers after Rogers steps down to become Nomad. Cap Simons actually faces the Red Skull and gets tortured and publicly crucified to send a message to Steve Rogers. And technically, Roscoe Simons exists in the MCU. Steve wore his uniform at Camp Lehigh in 1970 in Avengers Endgame. So this young soldier could have stepped up into the Cap title as part of some reboot initiative in the following decade and been the Cap that Alexei fought in 1984. But let's not forget that Steve Rogers is technically still alive in the MCU, and depending on how you interpret the final scene of Avengers Endgame, he himself could have actually fought the Red Guardian because of time travel. Kiwico is defining the future of play by making it engaging, enriching, and seriously fun. Kiwico offers 8 subscription lines, each catering to different age groups, designed to expose kids to concepts in STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. They believe in the concept of small today, big tomorrow. Teach kids problem solving on small projects today, and who knows what they can accomplish in the future. So this is the Tinker Crate that they sent me this month. shows you how to build these cool little friction climbers. It was awesome putting these together. Look how this sloth climbs. He's moving way faster than a normal sloth would. I actually learned a lot, and let's just say I'm on the north end of their 9 years old and up range for the Tinkerbox, but hey, I still had a blast. Kiwico wants kids to be fearless innovators and design projects to help them develop that muscle. You can get 50% off your first month of any crate by going to kiwico.com/newrockstars, linked below in the description. Now, if you go by the screenwriter's explanation that Cap went back in time to the 1940s and lived his life with Peggy Carter in the background of the MCU that we have been watching, then Alexei could have fought post-Endgame Steve Rogers in the same timeline. That would mean that there was a second Cap in MCU history who fought in the shadows, helping history in some ways, but staying out of it weirdly in others, like letting JFK get assassinated, letting 9/11 happen. Don't think too hard about it. But if Alexei's mission involved freaking stolen nuclear codes, as he says, perhaps that was one mission that this Steve Rogers could not stay out of. So he confronted Alexei, but in a way that made him think that he was successful, or maybe he would have been an older man Alexei could have had the upper hand against in a fight, as he claimed. And since that this Steve was living his life in secret, no one would believe Alexei when he told others this story. In 2016, Natasha and Steve would have no idea what Alexei was talking about. But despite the TVA's apparent double standards about variants and Nexus events, I still believe the director's explanation that Steve Rogers actually lived his life with Peggy in an alternate branch history, and then later he returned to the MCU timeline as an old man to hand off the shield to Sam Wilson, so that presents the option that Alexei actually could have fought post-Endgame Steve Rogers from an alternate timeline. Like, imagine if Steve could travel across timelines as an old man to hand off that shield, perhaps he could have made a similar journey just back to the year 1984 to face Alexei in whatever this mission was that involved nuclear codes. I bring this up because there have been reports that Marvel Studios is developing future films with Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, and if so, presumably it would be with Evans but not an old man makeup, suggesting it would take place in an alternate history. So we may see Chris Evans' Cap in that fight with the Red Guardian after all. Or the way Loki left things, maybe the events of Black Widow are even taking place in that alternate timeline. I know, these alternate timeline explanations are a bit convoluted. So the actual truth, and the reason Alexei may struggle with the truth of his own history, could reflect the way his government has treated him, and that Alexei's fight with Cap may have been faked by the USSR. Now remember, from the Ant-Man movie, in the year 1987, separatists hijacked a Soviet missile silo in Kursk. That's a Russian city near the border of present-day Ukraine. And the separatists launched an ICBM at the United States. A huge freaking deal. That crisis may have been the result of years of Soviet instability over its nuclear grid, which could have included the misplacement of nuclear codes, so they needed to send in the Red Guardian to recover them. As a propaganda cover story, they could have thrown against Alexei a patsy Captain America for him to defeat, so the Soviets could save face and claim this is all some botched American operation. Now, my gut tells me that Alexei was just lying, but again, for him to keep bringing up Cap, even when he's out of prison, tells me that he experienced something. Whether he fought an 80s Cap successor like William Burnside or Roscoe Simons, Steve Rogers after the events of Avengers Endgame, either in this timeline or in a different one, or if he fought a patsy his government used to lie to him, I'd leave that up to you. Comment down below with your theories, and again, check out our merch options at newrockstarsmerch.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EA Voss. Follow and subscribe to New Rockstars. Thanks for watching. Dos vidania.